What's up everyone? Welcome back to a Griffin family farm tour. My name is Taylor and I help gardeners explore regenerative and sustainable growing techniques that lead to massive yield boosts and no problems ever. But today we are doing a farm tour. And so one of the goals that I have for this channel is to show kind of what it's like to start a farm from scratch using a lot of the techniques that we talk about. We have only been doing all of these things using our gardens as examples, and so now we're kind of building this farm. It happens to be snowing today. Got a huge dump last night, but this is my day to film this, and so I'm just gonna do it, and you can imagine what there is as I'm talking about it. Actually, you know, we'll just overlay what it looked like mere hours ago, and then we'll probably have stuff that we can show you later on as well. So right here next to the house, we've got our Hugelkultur style raised beds. And you cannot tell super clearly here, but I actually just finished them with IMO 5, made out of rabbit manure, and my IMO 4, and then I mulched them with compost. One interesting thing about these beds is that I used these spruce stumps as the retaining walls and as the just ways to hold the soil in, I guess. And then I put wood chips in the pathways kind of in between, sort of seal up the logs. It is a really fun look. Not as fun right now, but I guess it kind of looks cool. I think that's going to be a really nice veggie patch, and it's going to set us up for some long-term like soil fertility and help keep the moisture in with the logs that I put at the bottom of each bed, dug down real nice and deep, and then we'll obviously have our biology saturating the beds. So we're in the backyard right now, and one thing that if you've been following us for any length of time, you'll notice is gone is the greenhouse / chicken coop and pen, and we'll get to where that went a little bit later on. We still have our chickens, thankfully, but right here is where that was, and you can see the gravel. It's about 4 inches deep of gravel mixed in with soil here. So we'll get to dig that out and move it somewhere. Something that I've learned about gardening a long time ago, and certainly about farming more so, is that it's kind of all about just like making piles and then moving those piles other places. Whoa! I just slipped. I just slipped on the snow. All right. Who knows what we're gonna find? Yeah, like I said, gardening is just about making piles and moving those piles, falling down and getting back up, just like I just did. You know, no one tells you about gardening is that it's really just a lot of pile making and pile moving. There's a pile of rocks, right over there. Here is a pile of spruce wood chips, okay? Here's a pile of pine wood chips mixed with soil. Here's a pile of bagged leaves. Here's a pile of different bagged leaves, okay? Here's a pile of, I think this is mostly cherry wood chips. Here's a pile of apple wood chips. Here's a pile of old wood chips and pine needles. Here's another pile of cherry wood at a finer grade. There's a pile of cherry lumber. There's another small pile of cherry wood chips. Here's some piles of soil to make some garden beds. There's a pile of straw. There's a pile of pine needles. More pine needles, charcoal, and more rocks. It's just pile making and pile moving. Back here behind our shed, we've got our rain barrels, and these are massive brewing vessels. We honestly probably have way too many, but I cannot part with them because we use them to make Jadam microbial solution and liquid IMO, compost teas, all sorts of good stuff. Jadam liquid fertilizer. But yeah, this has been a big part of the process, is just clearing the land so far. And along this fence line, which is our neighbors, the fence line we share with 2 neighbors, planted a bunch of comfrey, and I actually just saw some of them poking up the other day. Obviously you can't see them in the snow, but maybe we'll show what that looks like. Here's a compost pile I made a while back. How's the temp doing? 40. I mean, again, pile making is what it's all about. I use this compost to fill in some of those raised beds, and then I'll use it in the fields here. We are just about ready to start forming our beds, and you can actually kind of see the outline in the snow where our previous beds were here years ago. But we're moving those because we're shifting to a 4-foot wide bed rather than, I think we're doing 30-inch beds. So we'll do 4-foot wide beds and 16-inch pathways. 16 or 18-inch pathways, can't remember. Right here, that you really can't see almost at all because it's all covered in snow, is our rock pit. The name of the game here is just moving stuff. We're just like moving piles of rocks, digging out sticks, and moving it over yonder. Someday we'll have something to do with it, I'm sure. But once the snow goes away, we'll install our garden beds. Right here, we're doing 50-foot beds, and we'll get our first crops planted out in a few weeks here. Actually, one more thing before we move on from the backyard. This is a huge development, is we took out this enormous cherry tree. And here is like all the wood from that. Some of it is piled up next to our house. Really beautiful looking wood. And then covered in snow also right here, and here are 2 piles of wood chips. We shredded from that we'll be using to do our pathways and make various garden amendments. It's good stuff. Okay, I'm in the lower part of our yard, the side yard, and this is where the chicken coop went and greenhouse. And now it's actually just a chicken coop. I'm gonna walk backwards and hope I don't fall again. So here's our chickens, beautiful birds. Right now we just have 4 of them, and we're about to get another dozen. This chicken pen is actually something that I've been looking forward to making for a really long time. It looks really cool right now, actually. Let me turn this around. The snow is just, I'll just go in there. Oh, the snow is just like hanging down from the chicken wire. And it's made this really cool, it's like, looks like insulation. That is crazy looking. But our chickens are super happy. This is a nice big pen for them to live in. And then the coop is pretty cool. Very simple design, just half of the greenhouse basically, and it's been raised up so that they have all that underneath space to feel safe. And I put some of the spruce logs and stumps here because chickens love to jump on things. Probably need to set up a few more play areas for them. Got some roosts inside, and this whole chicken coop design setup, the point of it is actually just because it's the crux of our compost making operation. So if I close this and come over here and see that I've got this little secret door. Oh my goodness, almost fell again. That's a rock. Okay. Got this little secret door, and so just got to unlatch this, and then I can open this up. Hopefully that chicken doesn't run out. Pin it open there, and then I can go inside and just scoop chicken bedding out right here. And then once I'm done, I've brought out enough, I can combine it with my other materials. And then I need to put up another pallet right here. But I've just got a very simple pallet compost making pallet bay system. My compost. This is very ramshackle looking because it is ramshackle, but I had to start somewhere. And so right now, once I get that compost or that pallet in, then I can bring the chicken bedding out, start a first pile, add whatever other ingredients I want, and then I can start flipping it. It's just kind of nice to have an area where you can, like a bay with multiple walls to keep your compost locked up in. This is my finished compost right now. It sort of looks like a smiley face in the snow. Ooh, that's creepy. And then right here next to it, I've got my sifter. I've got my compost sifting devices and a tote to sift out the compost, and then just reuse the bigger chunks and do another batch of compost or use it as a mulch. Got all these pallets probably 5 years ago, and they've actually held up really well, I would say, over time. I replaced the chicken wire on a couple of these, but this is like, I don't know, it's pretty good for minimal investment. I'm pretty happy with it. And then there's my chicken coop compost setup. We'll probably do a more in-depth, full kind of breakdown of what's going on here and how it works, what it looks like. For now, with my freezing hands, I'm gonna move on. This pile next to our neighbor, which I'm sure she loves, is all the wood chips that Cassidy, mostly Cassidy, has scraped off our front yard so far. It's mixed with, and so we're probably gonna just be honestly feeding it to the chicken coop over time for a while to have it processed and then composted. This mound is another pile of wood chips. Big wood chip theme here. And then here are the stumps from the spruce that we cut down, the 2 spruces. Sprucey. And here's the front yard where we're gonna be growing yet more flowers and probably some veggies and maybe even some grains, who knows? It's like there's been some footprints out here. I wonder if the kids have been out today. Another major task that we've had is digging up the irrigation system that's here. We had a built-in sprinkler system that was pre-installed when we moved here, but we weren't sure how long it had kind of been in the ground and it didn't quite work. So we're just digging it up for the sake of doing our due diligence and making sure that it's not leaky. So it'd be a huge waste of water if it was. And it'd be a bummer if we had tried to get it all set up and then it just didn't work. We need to figure out we need to repair the electrical box not the electrical box, just some of the boxes that are dug into the ground are flooding and the fixtures aren't quite working. And so right now Cassidy is lead on getting our irrigation system kind of online. We really need to do that pretty soon here because we're about to start planting in a couple weeks. And that said, we probably won't water very much at all in those first few weeks. So we've got some time, but it is a lot. It's pretty extensive. Again, super grateful that we have the material because irrigation is expensive. What we're doing is we've dug it up. We're going to put it back in the ground once we have confirmed that there's no leaks or we've replaced the leaks. And then we're gonna set up drip tape. So we're gonna kind of run it along our beds in specific ways. And then we'll have drip tape fixtures or drip tape like T-posts that come off. And sorry, Cass, you're gonna have a fun time editing this. Manifolds, is that what they're called? I don't know, we'll have manifolds. We'll have stuff coming off of the 1-inch drip irrigation main line. And then we'll be able to set them up so that we can turn them on and turn them off individual beds. And anyway, it's gonna be really nice once it's set up, which is kind of, another big theme here. We've been just cleaning ever since our renters kind of trashed our place before we moved back, and trying not to be bitter about that, but not perfect. It's also been super fun getting to do all this really hard work. I'd say just to kind of, share a few concluding thoughts too as we wrap up this snowy day farm tour. A lot of what you're seeing, and I mean, feel free to ask questions about anything that we're up to or doing, but a lot of what we're doing here is just trying to set up a relatively closed loop system for our farm. We want to be able to generate as much fertility on site as possible. And like I said before, big ticket key there is with our chickens and the chicken bedding. I've inoculated it with IMO, so it kind of keeps things a bit warmer in the chicken coop environment. But then we get to pull out all of that bedding and use it as fertility for our farm, along with biochar and our other inputs. So the idea is if we can buy in as little compost as possible, preferably none, that's great. If we can do cover crops and restore our soil, some of it will need it more than others. The soil that needs the most work right now, from what I can tell, having spent a lot of time digging through the soil in various places, is this soil in the side yard. But we don't even have too many garden beds planned here. A lot of this will be just for growing fertility and kind of beneficial plants, pollinator attractors, and all sorts of that stuff. So guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Growing with Griffins. Why would I say it that way? Never said that. Guys, that's gonna wrap up this farm tour. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this farm tour, feel free to share the video, like it, subscribe, and this is what happens when I go off script. I was gonna carry around my iPad and just read my notes off of it, but it's so snowy out. Ooh, a robin. All right, everyone, that's all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.